In every crime, there's a reflection. A motive hidden in plain sight. A truth distorted by silence. Welcome to the Forensic Mirror, where psychology meets evidence, and every case reveals more than just what happened, it reveals why. Welcome back, truth seekers. You're now tuned into the Forensic Mirror, where shadows speak and silence is never innocent. Each week, we peel back the layers of guilt, decode the psychological fingerprints, and stare straight into the eyes of calculated chaos. This isn't just true crime. It's truth, dissected. Madness, mapped. And justice, relentlessly pursued. Please don't forget to follow, so you will know when I drop another crime episode. Also, head over to Conversations with Impact, which is another Spotify podcast of mine, where I talk about any and everything. Thanks to all. Episode 8, Theodore Bundy, the Architectural Psychopath and the Anatomy of Deceit. Welcome back to the Forensic Mirror. Today I will be diving into one of the most chilling cases in modern criminal history, the life and crimes of Theodore Robert Bundy, or just Ted Bundy. Bundy remains the archetype of the outwardly charming, highly intelligent serial predator, a man who challenged every preconceived notion law enforcement had about evil. His spree across the United States between 1974 and 1978 was a devastating lesson in the true cost of unchecked psychopathy, leaving an indelible mark on criminal justice, forensic science, and the public psyche. We will trace the journey of this architectural psychopath, from the foundational lie of his childhood to the technological evidence that finally condemned him. Stay tuned while we get started.
Ted Bundy spent his final hours, January 24, 1989, within the walls of Florida's Rayford prison. Outside, crowds gathered in a grim celebration, illustrating the depth of public outrage over his decade-long evasion of justice. Inside, the typically arrogant and cocksure man was reportedly emotional and spent time in prayer, a striking and unexpected contrast to the cold indifference he had displayed throughout his life.
Witnesses left the execution chamber and told the crowd Ted Bundy was dead.
I'd like you to give my love to my family and friends. That was it. And then they put a black hood or a black hood over his head, a veil, and he was electrocuted, and off to your left you could see a black hooded executioner. You can only see the eyes, a little slit in the wall on the left-hand side of the room, and you just see the eyes peering out, and a nod is given to the executioner, and he's executed. He kind of lurched back in his chair, his fist went back like that. It seemed maybe they gave him 2,000 volts for a minute or so.
And as the crowd roared its approval, Ted Bundy and the people who waited so long to see him dead said their final goodbyes.
Before his electrocution, Bundy made what would become his ultimate public statement. He confessed to killing 30 women and girls across 7 states: Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, California, and Florida. Yet, even with this large number, authorities and behavioral analysts believe the actual victim count could have exceeded 100, underscoring the vast, undocumented scope of his devastation. Bundy's final hours were not purely characterized by remorse, however. They were marked by one final, self-serving act of manipulation, a characteristic feature of high Machiavellian psychopaths. He granted a highly publicized interview to psychologist Dr. James Dobson, where he detailed his descent into addiction, specifically citing a consuming fascination with violent pornography that began in his youth.
I still remember Ted Bundy as a 23-year-old.
Ann Rule worked with Ted Bundy at the Seattle Crisis Center and wrote what's considered the definitive Bundy biography. She speaks about the moment Florida investigators asked Bundy if it was accurate that he had killed 36 young women.
He reportedly replied, "Add 1 digit to that and you'll have it." Was he being sarcastic, or did he mean 37 murders? Or did he mean 136 murders? Or did he mean 360 murders?
3 decades after his execution, Investigators hope they're getting closer to an answer for those still reeling from the pain.
In this moment, Bundy provided a narrative that blamed an external force, the media's portrayal of violence, for laying the foundation for his killing spree. This confession, framed as addiction, served two critical psychological functions. First, it satisfied his lifelong need for admiration and recognition, granting him maximum media attention right up until the moment of his death. Second, by citing pornography, he employed a powerful psychological defense mechanism known as the denial of responsibility. This maneuver allowed him to avoid the label of inherent evil, instead portraying himself as a victim corrupted by media, thereby attempting to curate his own historical legacy. Behavioral experts confirm that for serial killers like Bundy, the primary driving force behind the violence is a primal, emotional need for power and absolute control over others, with sexual gratification often serving only as a secondary or accompanying aim in the fantasy of total dominance. His execution in Florida closed the book on a case that permanently altered the landscape of American criminal justice. To understand the facade Bundy perfected as an adult, we must first look at the massive deception that constituted his childhood. Born Theodore Robert Cowell in 1946, he was born out of wedlock. His mother, Louise Cowell, chose not to place the baby up for adoption, but instead raised him in Philadelphia under a profound, institutionalized lie designed to protect the family from the era's fierce social stigma surrounding illegitimacy. Bundy was taught to believe that Louise was his sister, and that his grandparents were his mother and father.
Bundy's mother wondered what had happened to the boy she raised in Tacoma.
The son we raised was a wonderful, good person. We don't understand what has happened to him. We might not ever get an explanation.
This fabricated reality created the perfect psychological foundation for a developing psychopath. Anne Rule, a close friend and crime writer, noted that Bundy eventually claimed he saw through the lie, observing that Louise was always the one taking care of him, and that there couldn't be a 20-year difference in age between a brother and sister. Regardless of when he figured it out, the lie was dramatically shattered in his preteen or teenage years. According to one account, he found his birth certificate, where the space for father was marked unknown. In another, he was mercilessly teased by a cousin who used the document to prove his illegitimate status.
I have passed a point of no return. I have struggled and lost for the last time. No more illusions. The terrible nightmare has run its course.
That was Anne Rule more than 2 years before Bundy's execution. Over the years, the former crime writer had received more than 60 letters from Bundy. The letters and their friendship ended when she wrote this book in 1979, The Stranger Beside Me, recounts her relationship with one of the nation's most prolific serial killers.
And even though my rational mind says there never was such a person, I still remember Ted Bundy as a 23-year-old, smiling, empathetic, sympathetic young man. The monster Ted who killed, I know, has to go. He is so manipulative. He is such a master at escape that it would be only a matter of time until he did escape again.
Learning that his entire existence had been constructed upon a lie instilled in him a deep, scarring sense of humiliation and subsequent resentment toward Louise. This early life experience profoundly normalized deceit as a survival mechanism, allowing the future killer to comfortably inhabit the mask of sanity and maintain a meticulous double life throughout adulthood. The gap between who he appeared to be and who he truly was became his defining characteristic. Further complicating his formative years was the towering, abusive figure of his supposed father, Samuel Cowell. Samuel was described as a tyrannical bully who subjected his wife, who suffered from severe depression and received electroshock treatment, and daughter, Louise, to years of domestic violence. He was known to throw Louise down the stairs if she overslept, and he routinely abused dogs, even tossing a neighbor's cat by its tail. Despite, or perhaps because of, this pattern of arbitrary rage and dominance, Bundy disturbingly admitted to and Rule that he looked up to his grandfather and identified with him. This conscious identification with the tyrannical aggressor, who modeled absolute power over vulnerable individuals, established a profound and dangerous psychological blueprint. It confirmed to the young Bundy that control and status were paramount, an idea further reinforced when Louise married John Bundy in 1951. Young Ted was mortified by his stepfather's modest job as a military chef and his choice of a sensible Rambler car. This early drive for status fueled a severe penchant for materialistic goods, and a refusal to acknowledge John as his father, confirming a preference for the powerful aggressor archetype over the kind, stable figure. As Bundy matured, he didn't fit the profile of a marginalized delinquent. Instead, he diligently engineered a seemingly perfect life that allowed him to hide in plain sight. He was a proficient student who graduated high school and continued to college in Washington, where he was highly active in the political scene, particularly with the Republican Party. His resume included work at the Seattle Crisis Clinic, showcasing an ideal citizen profile that baffled investigators for years. With Bundy exhibiting superficial charm, high articulateness, and poise, Bundy was often described as charismatic, the kind of person a friend would want their sister to marry. Underlying this charm, however, was an utter lack of empathy or remorse, a failure to accept responsibility, and calculated predatory aggression. He viewed other human beings merely as pawns in his chess game. Bundy was defined by a pervasive, grandiose sense of self-importance and extreme entitlement. He indulged in fantasies of unlimited success and power. His crimes were motivated by a desire for absolute dominance over life cycle, and his insistence on presenting himself in court, despite lacking legal expertise, stemmed from his inflated sense of his own abilities. Bundy was also able to deceive and manipulate others purely for personal gain, reinforcing his view of people as objects for use. The convergence of these disorders enabled Bundy to maintain his elaborate facade while pursuing his vicious, calculated objectives. In his final interviews, Bundy discussed the mechanism by which his internal fantasies transitioned into external actions. He described how his early fascination with, and later addiction to, violent pornography provided not only the conceptual framework but also the psychological validation for his cruel methods. This confession was a significant moment in the national discourse, suggesting that the consumption of violent media may accelerate the psychological pathway of a serial predator, providing structure and momentum to fantasies of domination. The most illuminating look into Bundy's double life comes from his 6-year relationship with Elizabeth Klopfer, who wrote the memoir Phantom Prince under the pseudonym Elizabeth Kendall. Klopfer met Bundy in a Seattle bar in 1969. At the time, she was a lonely, shy, and insecure single mother struggling with alcoholism, actively seeking stability. She described handing Bundy her life, saying, "Here, take care of me." Bundy provided the structure she craved, but their relationship was volatile. His affections were strong but inconsistent. When she felt his love, she felt on top of the world, but when she sensed his withdrawal, she felt worthless. This intermittent reinforcement is a classical manipulative technique, designed to keep a partner psychologically dependent, confirming the predator's control even within the confines of a domestic relationship. Bundy's predatory need for dominance was not reserved solely for strangers. It defined his private life as well. As Bundy began his murder spree in 1974, Klopfer grew suspicious. She noticed increasingly strange behaviors, finding a meat cleaver on his desk, discovering a surgical glove in his coat pocket, and his sudden, unexplained need to drive hundreds of miles to Colorado to de-stress from work. Bundy used his charm and intellectual dexterity to talk his way out of every query, consistently dismissing her concerns. Eventually, Klopfer made the agonizing decision to contact the police. Crucially, the authorities dismissed her concerns entirely. Bundy, the college graduate, the aspiring law student, simply did not fit their established image of a serial killer. This systemic failure to grasp the killer's true nature, his ability to wear the mask of sanity flawlessly, allowed his spree to continue and intensify. The police's preconceived notions tragically cost lives and underscore how institutional biases can overlook critical warning signs when the predator deviates from established stereotypes. Bundy's spree demonstrated a rapid escalation of calculated violence, starting in Washington state in early 1974.
Inside the vast files of Bundy evidence in King County, we found this film from the summer of '74, a Rainier Brewing Company picnic with Ted Bundy's Volkswagen in plain view. It was the same day Bundy kidnapped and killed Janice Ott and Denise Naslund at the park.
I handcuffed her and put her in the passenger side of the car and drove away.
Bundy's trail of terror in 1974 led him to young women on Washington college campuses. Among his targets, UW student Georgianne Hawkins. As Hawkins walked in an alley near Greek Row, Bundy walked with crutches, pretending to need her help carrying his briefcase.
His first proven murder occurred in February of that year. By July, he had escalated to claiming 2 victims in one day, a pattern he repeated again in November. His victims were predominantly young women and girls. The sheer geographical scope of the attacks, spreading from Washington and Oregon into Idaho, Utah, and Colorado, was a devastating illustration of a major systemic flaw in 1970s American law enforcement. Bundy methodically exploited this weakness by operating across multiple state lines. Because police agencies lacked effective means to communicate and share data across jurisdictions, the seemingly isolated disappearances and murders in different states were not connected to a single pattern. Bundy's ability to move between states, combined with his meticulous nature, often removing evidence and obstructing victim identification post-crime, confirmed his belief that his power to avoid detection was greater than the police's power to catch him. This failure of coordination was a primary catalyst for future federal reforms. The spree was temporarily disrupted in August 1975, when Bundy was arrested in Utah for speeding and evading police. He was later positively identified by a victim who had managed to escape his attack, leading to his eventual conviction for aggravated kidnapping. Bundy's pathological grandiosity and inflated sense of ability led him to believe he was intellectually superior to the legal system. While awaiting trial for the murder of Karen Campbell in Colorado, he insisted on representing himself. This decision, driven by narcissism, inadvertently afforded him the opportunity for his first dramatic escape in June 1977. While granted unsupervised access to the Pitkin County Courthouse Law Library in Aspen, he jumped from a second-story window and briefly vanished before his recapture. The attempt demonstrated his high-risk tolerance, but his subsequent second escape proved his strategic brilliance. Held at the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, Bundy meticulously planned his second, more successful breakout on December 30, 1977. He removed a light fixture from his cell ceiling, squeezed through the small, 1-foot hole into the plumbing and wiring passageway above the jail, and finally exited through a closet in an adjacent jailer's apartment. The escape was not discovered until the following afternoon, giving Bundy a significant head start. These 2 escapes were more than just personal drama. They exposed critical security and legal vulnerabilities. The courthouse escape forced courts nationwide to immediately reconsider the extent of privileges afforded to pro se defendants, especially those accused of violent crimes. The jailbreak, which remains one of the most infamous in American criminal history, immediately led to stronger jail protocols and security reforms. The successful second escape, fueled by his confirmed belief in his own invincibility, allowed him to flee Colorado and cross the entire country. This institutional failure to contain the serial killer had immediate, catastrophic public safety consequences, as Bundy resurfaced in Florida, intent on continuing his reign of terror.
Before we continue, please don't forget to follow and share. And thank you all for listening. Now, let's get back to the case.
After hitchhiking across the country, Bundy arrived in Florida in early 1978. His final and most brutal concentrated attack occurred on the campus of Florida State University. On the evening of January 14th, he invaded the Chi Omega sorority house in Tallahassee, brutally assaulting and murdering 2 women, Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levi, and severely injuring 2 others. A few weeks later, on February 9, 1978, Bundy committed the crime that sealed one of his death sentences: the kidnapping and murder of 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from her junior high school in Lake City, Florida. Her partially decomposed body was located 2 months later. Bundy's criminal career finally came to a decisive end on February 15, 1978, in Pensacola, Florida. He was stopped by local police for speeding while driving a stolen vehicle. Initially identifying himself as Kenneth Misner, he eventually revealed his true identity, and investigators quickly realized they had apprehended a high-profile fugitive wanted for escape and suspected of dozens of homicides across the western U.S. The subsequent trial for the Chi Omega murders in 1979 became a defining moment for forensic science. Despite Bundy's manipulative performance while representing himself, the prosecution possessed irrefutable physical evidence, bite mark analysis. During the assault, Bundy had violently bitten Lisa Levy's buttock, leaving a distinctive, recognizable mark. Forensic odontologist Dr. Richard Suvian matched molds of Bundy's lower dentition to the wound, providing the key evidence for conviction. Experts often describe this case as forensic luck because Bundy's lower teeth were extremely crooked, providing a unique, easily identifiable signature that is not typical in bite mark analysis. This high-profile case transformed forensic dentistry. After the conviction, the use of bite mark analysis skyrocketed, increasing the general acceptance and normalization of forensic science, including forensic pathology and trace evidence analysis, in criminal trials nationwide. Furthermore, fiber analysis connecting materials from Kimberly Leach's clothing found in Bundy's car provided conclusive evidence in her kidnapping and murder trial. Even in the face of the death penalty, Bundy's pathological need for an audience and his pervasive grandiosity manifested in one final act of courtroom manipulation.
He was attractive, intelligent, and able to charm women and men alike.
It wasn't until a year and a half later, while watching TV, that Sotria says she realized she'd been picked up by a suspected serial killer.
I knew 100% that was the guy, yeah.
During the penalty phase of the Chi Omega trial, Bundy exploited a loophole in Florida law, proposing to his former colleague, Carol Ann Boone, while she was testifying on his behalf. This dramatic declaration legally constituted a marriage in the courtroom. This theatrical gesture, which presented him as a man capable of love and commitment, was a final attempt to influence the jury and control the narrative, even though it did not save him. Boone later gave birth to his daughter while he was incarcerated on death row. The crimes and conviction of Ted Bundy had an impact on the American justice system far exceeding the scope of the case itself. Bundy's case was crucial to the development of modern behavioral science in law enforcement. FBI supervisory agents John Douglas and Robert Ressler, pioneers of criminal profiling, actively interviewed Bundy while he was incarcerated. To circumvent Bundy's natural defensiveness and psychopathic inability to accept responsibility, interviewers allowed him to use the third person to speculate about a hypothetical offender and his mental processes.
You have time and patience. I think that those are two good words. You can't hope to drag it out of a guy overnight, okay? And you can't get frustrated if he doesn't give it to you all at once in one piece, because and you have to be content with slowly learning about what kind of person is this. It's not like anybody's going to trick him into talking about it or pressure him into talking about it.
That was Bundy talking about himself in the third person moments before confessing to a killing. In an attempt to bargain for his life, Bundy delivered details about the murders of Georgianne Hawkins and others. Bundy told Keppel he found Hawkins walking in an alley near the University of Washington around midnight using crutches as a ploy. Bundy pretended to need help carrying his briefcase.
The detailed, often shocking information gleaned from Bundy about the motives, habits, and background of the organized sexual predator contributed directly to foundational FBI works, including sexual homicide, patterns, and motives. The information gathered from this cunning killer helped transition criminal investigation from reactive evidence collection to proactive behavioral analysis. The story of Theodore Robert Bundy is, at its heart, a study in duality: the brilliant student versus the calculated killer, the loving boyfriend versus the violent abuser, the aspiring lawyer versus the ultimate lawbreaker. His trajectory was set early by the profound deceit of his childhood, an environment that normalized duplicity and laid the groundwork for a psychopathic existence defined by manipulation. This foundation merged with the learned preference for arbitrary power, internalized from his abusive grandfather, fueling his grandiose narcissism and desire for absolute dominance. The greatest irony of Bundy's career is that the man who considered himself intellectually superior to law enforcement was ultimately defeated not by brilliant deduction, but by a combination of scientific advancements and random biological chance. His unique, crooked dentition provided the definitive, physical evidence that secured his conviction, transforming a vicious crime into a forensic watershed moment.
And I still can see him.
It is a voice you've never heard. Did you feel like you might die?
Yeah, I did.
But the memories of a snowy Seattle day in 1972 are clear and haunting.
He was dressed real nice, and his hair was kind of wavy, and he had dark eyes. Handsome looking.
This would be no ordinary ride, and this was no good Samaritan. It was Ted Bundy.
Right about here, everything changed. He started, reaching under the seat. Started yelling at me, "Why did you take this ride? Why did you even think about taking this ride? You're never going to make it to the school." And I thought, wow.
You were thinking about jumping out.
Yes.
Why didn't you?
I couldn't. There was no handle.
No handle on the door?
No handle on the door at all, nope.
So Tria would soon learn it might be hair, not heroics, that could save her life.
Involved in the rape murders of 36 women, all young and all with long brown hair.
So Tria speculates the hair that she had cut a week earlier may have saved her life.
He could have killed me. It was just thank God I had gotten my hair cut, that I probably wouldn't be talking to you today.
An hour into her odyssey, so Tria says Bundy dropped her off in front of her school, shoving her to the ground and reminding her of just how lucky she was.
Embarrassed about it.
He was attractive, intelligent, and able to charm women and men alike.
It wasn't until a year and a half later, while watching TV, that Sotria says she realized she'd been picked up by a suspected serial killer.
I knew 100% that was the guy, yeah.
Bundy died weeping in the electric chair, but the systems that failed to stop him were radically transformed as a result of his crimes. The gaps he exploited, poor communication, lax security, and the failure to understand the sophisticated psychological profile of the serial killer were systematically closed. While Bundy sought only to inflict terror and achieve dominance, his life became an unwilling, dark contribution to the fields of forensic science, criminal psychology, and modern policing. The lessons learned from the architectural psychopath ensure that future predators wearing the mask of sanity will face a much more coordinated and scientifically advanced justice system.
Thank you, listeners, for listening. I would love to hear any feedback or comments, or what you would like to hear about next. Please don't forget to follow and share. Until next time, my Forensic Mirror fans.